Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Trammell Crow for these facilities and for this incredible event. The Asociación de Empresarios Mexicanos, thank you very much for having us in this lovely venue. So today we're going to be talking about North America, and very specifically, we're going to be talking about the U.S.-Mexico relationship. And before I get into the nitty-gritty, I thought that I might share with you some important issues that I think we often forget. And we are talking about the most integrated two large nations on the planet. We're talking about the most legally crossed border in the world. We've got 1 million border crossings a day through 330 ports of entry. These are legal border crossings, obviously. So you get an idea of how integrated Mexico and the United States are. 1/4 of all international flights that leave U.S. airspace, that's 25% of all international flights that leave the U.S., have as a destination Mexico. Mexico is not only the #1 destination for Americans, it actually has more American visitors than the rest of the top 5 combined. There are, of course, 37 million Mexicans and Mexican Americans in the United States, but there are also between 1 and 3 million Americans in Mexico. That's between 4 and 12 times more than second place Canada. So whether you're talking about the fact that the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City is the only place outside of Washington, D.C., where every U.S. government dependency is represented, or you're talking about the fact that Mexico has the largest consular presence of any country anywhere in the United States. We have 53 consulates here. Of course, Mexico is the #1 trading partner for the United States, so there is not one single issue where Mexico is not #1 in that intermestic agenda, because that's the word. It's not international and it's not domestic, it's intermestic. And for Mexico, there's not one issue in which the United States is not #1. So food safety, national security, demographics, trade, and I'll give you just one final tidbit. Everybody talks about Latin America. Well, just so you get an idea, there's more trade between Mexico and Texas, not between Mexico and the entire United States, just Mexico and Texas, than everything that the rest of Latin America trades with the entire world combined. Okay? Laredo, Nuevo Laredo is actually the most important inland port, not in all of Mexico, like unfortunately we say. It is the #1 inland port in the world. $300 billion worth of trade just through Laredo, Nuevo Laredo. That's 16,000 tractor trailers per day crossing that border. It's really something, it's a sight to see, and unfortunately, it's not seen enough, right? And I think that that's a good way to segue into the topic of our conversation with our esteemed guest. I know that Betty has a presentation. If you'd like, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with that, and then we can go over to Jerry and we can have a great conversation here, and of course take some questions from the audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I'm very Cardiel. And I have a very quick presentation just to talk about something that we, in our company, we have learned. Some best practices is what I'm bringing to you, and most of the things that we are really taking care of right now, because right now is a good moment to share some of those best practices. Let me see if I can put the presentation. Can you guys help me? There you go. So what is happening right now? The 80% of the North America firms that are really considering nearshoring is something that they have to do or to address for those critical projects that you have. Again, I belong to Softtek. Softtek is one of the companies that have been working very hard by doing this, by establishing the nearshoring concept probably since '97, and it has evolved. What is nearshoring? I would like to start by that, by understanding, first of all, what is nearshoring? For me, nearshoring is that proximity. When I explain to my kids what is nearshoring, I put it in a very easy way. Let's think that you have a solar company that you want to produce energy from Texas to Illinois, or from California to Illinois. Where are you going to establish that company? In Illinois, or in Texas, or in California? Where you can produce more, when you can provide more. So that is exactly what nearshoring is to take the advantage of proximity, but not only that, is to take the advantage of the cost savings and how to leverage the experience of the people, and also take advantage of countries or states like Yucatan that you were talking about. The minister was talking about that before. No? My expertise is in IT, and that's what I want to talk to you today. Very quick, the concept of nearshore was first coined by Softtek in '97, but thanks to the governments, probably in 2000, 2002, it took a lot of attraction to Mexico and Latin America countries. So that's important to mention. One of the best practices that we always share to our colleagues, entrepreneurs, startups, is how do you start up a company to provide services from Mexico to US with this model. We call it the right value generation model, because it's exactly to understand what is the right thing that you want to export and what are the right things that you want to import from US to Mexico. It's not about everything. And that's probably one of the big mistakes that we have seen with some of the companies that we have worked for during this probably 30 years or 25 years, right, Benny, who is our CEO here in US, working for several companies here in US. So that is number one. We need to think about where is the right place, what is the right size that we have to put, or amount of people that we have to have in US, how many people in India, how many people in Mexico, or in Colombia, where we have also an office, because it makes sense to provide the right value to the customer at the end of the day, and also to bring the cost benefit that we are looking for, of course. Talking about this uncertainty, because that's exactly one of the things. I would like to invite you very quick, if you have your cell phone, just to take a picture of this QR code. This is probably one of the summaries that we have released based on some of the best practices and how we have been able to be successful in US by providing IT services, not only from Mexico, but also from Spain to Europe, from India to Asia, and things like those. This morning, someone was talking about the follow the sun. It's very important to consider the people. We don't have to waste probably the talent by putting the people working at night for someone that is trying to produce during the day. So that's why follow the sun is also a best practice that we want to share, because we, as a Mexican company, originally Mexican company, now a global company, we couldn't put in risk the well-being of the people. So some of the things that we are competing with, some of the biggest ones, which are the Indian companies in IT, is with this, no? With people, with a cultural alignment that we can take advantage to really find out how we can build that affinity with the US or with our customers worldwide. One key thing that I know that we always talk about our customers, because you may think that IT is only IT services. We provide services to several industries: manufacturing, automotive, travel, hospitality, supply chain, of course. And one of the things that we always consider that is key for that beginning of the process is the soft landing. Soft landing is key. We cannot jeopardize that part. We cannot put in risk. Of course, you want to start a business from Mexico to provide services to the US, but you need to be very careful with the soft landing. We have helped several companies to do that at the beginning, and putting and making the IT operations work from Mexico and combining the IT operations with US. So that's key.
And I think that plays to what we were saying in terms of complementarity, right? I mean, these are two economies that are complementary by nature. This isn't new, right, Jerry? I mean, you and I have been in the trenches for a long time. I even remember as a young boy that the first person to talk about a free trade agreement with Mexico was actually President Ronald Reagan. He made that proposal to José López Portillo, and López Portillo decided to not accept it. And it wasn't until President Salinas came to power that he accepted the American invitation to do free trade, now on a North American scale. And that's when it all began in these negotiations in 1993, such that on the 1st of January 1994, we had NAFTA. And I think we have a lot of players here that remember some of these milestones. And for us, it's very clear, right? I mean, we know the terrain, we know the people, we know how these two countries are complementary in all of this. And yet, of course, as we know, the narrative out there isn't quite so accurate or so rosy. Jerry, IBC is a bank that does business, that has been doing business for a very long time. You're on the border. You're on that, Laredo, Nuevo Laredo, which is, again, the most important inland port in the world. And you know this backwards and forwards. What would you say with respect to what's going on right now? And do you really believe that that this moment could actually change the course of North American trade, or are we just talking about a chapter in a bigger story of success?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Agustin. Glad to be with you and Betty, and to be with you all. But I'd like, before I answer your question, I have to do this shout out again to EarthX, to Harlan, and to Rajan, and to Peter, and Hector, and the whole team. You have blown it out of the park again with this conference. So really, bringing together this group of individuals throughout the week has been phenomenal. So really, thank you for everything you do for this bank. So your point in listening to your opening remarks and listening to Betty, actually I do live it every day. I thank God that I live in Texas, and I thank God that I live and work in Laredo, Texas. My office oversees I-35, which begins in Laredo, Texas. Yep. And then also right behind my building is the now Canadian Pacific Kansas City rail line. So I like the whistles and the horns of the trains, because that's business. That's the economy. That's vitality. That's jobs. And at the same time, I love the trucks and I love the cars. And so the story that I ordinarily tell is that we that have grown up and live on the border, we built our lives around relationships between Mexico, Texas, and Mexico, the United States, and now Canada. Our bank is a Texas-based bank, headquartered in Laredo, Texas, born in 1966. And I want to showcase that year, 1966, what happened. As you alluded to, 1980, when Ronald Reagan actually placed it in the Republican National Committee platform, this whole concept of Western Hemispheric trade. So it goes back beyond, way beyond the 90s. But as I live it every day, we build ourselves, our company, under the premise that relationships are what makes us. Relationships with personal relationships in Mexico, with families that have always looked north to the United States as a great friend and partner where to live and do business. Likewise, southbound. I've been doing this for 40 plus years, and for the first 20 years of my life, I devoted it to helping US companies or European companies or Asian companies that were looking at Mexico as an option, and I don't want to even call it platform, but as a country of opportunity to being that we're right next to the largest consumer of the world, which is the United States. The second half of my career, and it's not over yet, by the way, it's still a lot of fun, this is fun, is helping Mexican entrepreneurs, Mexican businesses expand into the United States and Canada, buying labels, investing, creating jobs, at the same time as building facilities, distribution centers, whether it be on the border, whether it be Dallas, whether it be Houston, anywhere, hopefully all in Texas and Oklahoma where we have a presence. But really, it all boils down to the relationships that are built by families and businesses. This is what it's all about. I'm in the third generation of families in my company. So when I tell someone that wants to do business with our bank and seeks us as a financial services provider, I always turn around and say, I just don't want to be doing business with you. I want to be doing business with your sons and daughters and your grandchildren, and go full forth. Because that's what it's all about. And that's what this relationship between our three countries is all about. We're resilient. We can overcome any obstacle. We've lived through so many things. And being on the border, I will tell you, I tell the story that sometimes people that talk about the border talk about us as being a different planet, like a different country, like a different world. I look at it the other way around. I look at it how fortunate we are, where we have border communities that are integrated economically, culturally, just like we would like for North America also as becomes more integrated, and adding the cultural value of the three of us, respecting the sovereignty, but with the ability to do more business with each other to compete on a global basis.
Absolutely, Jerry. And in fact, I mean, you harken back to 1980. I'll do you one even better. This has been going on for hundreds of years. In fact, the US dollar sign is in fact the Mexican peso sign. Yes. When the US decided to adopt a symbol for its currency, it adopted the Mexican peso symbol, which is New Spain and Spain bound together, or the columns of Hercules. And it did so because, of course, the fact that the money in the Western Hemisphere was actually the new Spanish silver peso. So this is not new, apart from, of course, the 850,000 square miles that used to be a part of Mexico, and this used to be Texas y Coahuila and all of these different things. In this shared history, my point with that is only that you cannot understand the United States without Mexico, and you cannot understand Mexico without the United States. And I believe that to be a good thing, personally. But we are running into this issue, Jerry, and I think, you know, the narrative that is out there, you who live on the border, you understand this. And unfortunately, the narrative has been hijacked. And it's been hijacked from people who have never even been to the border, but they have a lot of opinions. And those opinions right now have ascendancy. What do you think we should be doing to counteract that and to speak the truth?
Well, the dialogue and being at, I always say it's better to, you know, you be on the menu than on the table. So you got to have dialogue and discussion. And the old thing about in Spanish, hablando se entiende la gente. You know, we talk to each other. At the end, it's what Jaime Serra used to say when he talks about doing business. You know, the governments don't trade, people trade. So it's we the people that will find the solutions to any obstacle that may be placed to, you know, upon us by whatever external force is, whether it be government or whatever catastrophe there is. So there is a lot to be said about the rhetoric that's going on right there that has been expanded because of the whole change in the social media and the rhetoric from people that really don't understand it because they don't live it every day. And yes, when we were working on NAFTA back then, I recall very vividly in those years, we were lobbying very heavily as a coalition, putting together the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Business Roundtable, National Association of Manufacturers, but working together with Mexico Chambers and the Canadian Business Council or the Consejo Coordinador Empresarial, or the predecessors were back then. These were people that said, we're stronger together than divided. En la unión está la fuerza. En la unión está la fuerza. So together we're stronger in that. So that's what, at the end, I think any obstacle, whether what we're facing right now, we will overcome. I am the guy that always likes to see the glass half full rather than be half empty. So being involved in what we've lived back in the 90s, what we overcame, and it was a big challenge. First trilateral agreement, and what we're facing today, to me, there's no obstacle. And I live it every day with devaluations, with policies of two governments. My day is dictated every day, every morning in my office by a morning press conference by President Sheinbaum, former President López Obrador, or when the 10 o'clock tweet will come out, you know, in social media. That dictates my day. And do I stop everything? No. I adapt and I move on and I work with our customers and we communicate and we have dialogue and discussions.
I find it very interesting that the organizers, yes. Absolutely. I find it very interesting that the organizers decided that to have Betty with us, because at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff that's going on has to do with manufacturing, right? And that's the bête noire, right? That's what gets all the attention. And yet you and your Mexican company is a services firm. And as a service firm, and in fact, as anybody knows, the service part of the economy is actually the fastest growing part of the economy. And that part of the economy has its own dynamic. Could you tie into what's going on with the trade and services vis-a-vis the conversation that's happening in manufacturing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and thank you again for that question, because you say so. I'm not, I cannot talk about politics, I cannot talk about the economy at all, but I can talk about technology and how that technology is now changing everything. I mean, we are in the AI world, and I think we are so fortunate because we are living that. So now in this industry, in technology, I was just reading this morning that the power of Latin America and how we can potentialize manufacturing, supply chain with technology, it can bring to Latin America more than $70 billion. So that's a lot. This is why? Because again, one of the things is proximity. So in manufacturing, it's happening something similar that in technology in somehow, because a lot of things, right now with all those changes, the government is asking us is to build things here in US in somehow, or take advantage of those, of Mexico, for example, no, as a neighborhood. But the thing is that probably we don't have the talent to produce at that level that we require to serve US. So we need to prepare that part too. That is one of the challenges that right now we are working. Again, this morning there was another conversation when they were talking about how to produce that talent, how we work with the universities or with these young generations that want to be in the cell phone all day long, instead of creating how to manage that. So that's exactly one of the things that we should take care as a companies right now.
And are you doing that? Are you working with the universities on both sides of the border to create that talent?
Absolutely. We are working very close. For example, I mean, we have been growing in Colombia, for example, but in Mexico with Tec de Monterrey, with Universidad Panamericana, the local universities where we have centers in Mexico, Aguascalientes, Monterrey, Baja, because with Baja we can cover that proximity to the California area.
That's Baja California.
Yeah. So we are working with Baja California universities, with Ensenada University, and I can tell you, I love that part. My background is cybersecurity per se, and became lawyer because I needed to be here in US and understand the law, because I'm in the compliance and governance part. But in that part, we had to create academies to really incentivize the participation of boys and girls. I'm so fortunate to be considered and to speak to many girls, to invite them to be part of this STEM community that we need to promote that part in here. I'm working here with the Dallas Mavericks, yeah.
With the Dallas Mavericks?
I'm personally working with the GEM organization, which is the Girls Empowered by Mavericks, to help them by putting together a coding program for all the girls. Besides the sports, they need to think in STEM, so that's part. We are partners of Dallas Mavericks, the technology partners, and the Real Madrid as well. So we are working also in other regions like in Spain to incentivize that. But again, it's the talent that we need to promote.
That's wonderful. I think that's a great way to end the session with that forward-looking vision of including the youth in what's going on, and hopefully they'll be getting the message. Jerry, do you want to have some parting words?
Well, certainly. First of all, great to be with you, Betty. And I will tell you, this is a company right here that our bank has used. When we looked at her company, we didn't look at it because it was a Mexican company, because it was a company that provided a service. It wasn't Canadian, it wasn't Mexican. is because they were already providing a service that I needed, and they did an excellent job. And I look at, a friend here whose family also, transcends that generation of what I'm talking about, 1 or 2 generations. My closing message is to you all, again, that we not look at all focus on the negativity. I was reminded this morning, right now at our table, the great, un dicho en español, si se acaba el mundo nos vamos a Mérida. O algo así, ¿verdad?
If the world ends, we're going to Mérida.
If the world ends, we're going to Mérida.
Which is actually where the world ended once already because of the Chicxulub.
So if for those that may think that with all that's going on right now between the rhetoric, that if you think it's going to end, we have our host here of Yucatan, we'll all go to Mérida. But we'll go to Mérida to do more trade and grow together our businesses and the dynamics of what North America will allow us to compete on a global basis. So I'm excited to be part of that. I think we should focus on that and be at the table, be part of the dialogue. We have begun the review of the USMCA, so let's do it together.
Great. Okay. Well, Jerry,
Pleasure.
Betty, thank you very much.
Agustin.
Thank you all for having us here today. And looking forward to seeing you after the panel. Thank you.